utility tariffs throughout the year. We have details of a litany of conditions the fund expects government to meet. Also tonight, Asantehene said to the second vows to deal with chiefs complicit in illegal mining in a Mancia area as he challenges government to crack the whip on errand officials to end the galamsey scourge.
And I have to start with my chiefs first, and then government has to deal with the other ones.
So
we all have to take matters seriously to be able to bring this to a closure.
We have details as Environmental Protection Agency reviews alarming levels of mercury in the Tano River as heavy metals are found in the gills of fishes tested from the river. Also tonight, opposition NDC says it is in pole position to reclaim the Asin North seat as it prepares ahead of the by-election. This follows the Supreme Court directive to Parliament to remove Jachi Kweson's name from its role.
Of what is happening in Parliament, government should move so that we can go and have that election. We, as a party, we are more than prepared for the by-election.
We will hear from the MPP, which is asking the Electoral Commission to do due diligence before allowing anyone to run in any elections.
So I think going forward, the EC should not take any parliamentary candidate's word for granted. If you say you have renounced your citizenship, let us see the certificate.
And also still with the NDC, the leadership there have justified its decision by its National Executive Committee using 3 unstamped ballots to declare Edem Agbana legitimate winner of the Ketu North Parliamentary primary. We have details for you in business.
Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, confirms first tranche of IMF's cash should hit its account, that is tomorrow, but warns that we should focus more on the structural benefits on the IMF program.
And in sports, the Ghana Football Association hands Asante Kotoko's Evans Mensah a 1-year ban from all football-related activities for misconduct.
You want to stay with us for details of this and more, plus what is happening in Nigeria tonight as Ghanaian lawmakers raise concerns about the fallouts of the Nigerian elections. A select delegation of MPs from West Africa hold a crunch meeting in Abuja starting tomorrow.
We will also look at the fallout from the Nigeria election. So tomorrow, that's what we'll be looking at. And then next week, we'll debate our own report that the commission has shared with us.
And later in the bulletin, Sanitation Minister directs all MMDCEs to capture and sell stray animals to support government projects.
When you let your cows stray, they should seize the cows, arrest the cows, sell the cows, and use the money to help with projects in the assemblies.
We are live tonight on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi, Castle FM, Cape Coast, Dreams FM in Bogatanga. Over 30 affiliates across the country on Facebook, Twitter, and My Joy online. Let's start tonight with the biggest story in the last 24 hours. The Executive Board approval, the IMF Executive Board approval of Ghana's bailout. Now, the fund is expecting government to contain Ghana's wage bill by limiting hiring and wage increases, plus adjust utility tariffs throughout the year. And yesterday we saw an 18% plus increase in electricity tariffs alone. Now this is to compensate for any exchange rate and price movements to bring tariffs close to cost recovery levels. These are part of a litany of measures the fund expects government to implement as part of efforts to meet the terms of the $3 billion program. George Affe is still with me as we begin to digest that entire document. George, let's talk about the issue of tariff adjustments.
Now, Evans, you remember that the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission recently raised the utility tariffs by close to 30% as more of a prior action, bringing the cumulative increase since mid-2022 to about 57%. Now, this was to help in what they call the cost recovery gap and limit this year's shortfall to about 2.7% of GDP, offsetting the underlying upward pressures for more of the depreciation exchange rate concerns. Now, additional events, the quarterly adjustment to be implemented in 2023. Now, this is to compensate for any exchange rate and price movement and bring the tariffs close to what they call the cost recovery levels, whilst efforts are being made to improve the operational efficiency of energy distribution as planned in this energy program, and also recognition of a contract with the independent power producers are expected to further reduce the cost. Now, beyond 2023, the program's baseline projections are looking at assuming that the sector's shortfall will be gradually reduced to 1.7% of GDP in 2026. Now, the slight improvement in the grade recovery laws and staff urges the authorities to aim at a more rapid reduction in the sector's shortfall when it comes to this ESRP program events to create that fiscal space and more of a prioritized spending events. So this could actually notably achieve through this what they call additional ad hoc tariffs whilst protecting the vulnerables in terms of the households.
Bottom line, George, expect tariffs to go up consistently throughout the year when the review is done. Let's look at one of the key issues that the labor unions have been warning about when it comes to the IMF programs, either this current one or the past ones. Now, wages and the wage bill. What's this program
It's been a big concern, Evans. And you know that that's been one of our biggest challenges when it comes to our debt and our expenditure. If you go through the document, it says that the primary expenditure will be reduced by 2 percentage points of GDP, now mainly by lowering the capital expenditure through project reprioritization by providing around 0.9% of GDP of savings. Now, containing the wage bill by limiting wage increases and hiring.
Okay, so that's an important one. Limiting wage increases and hiring.
Yeah.
So in other words, government ability to employ will also be limited.
Fix your house before you bring in more people.
And that's where we need clarity. Is that an exception, say, for essential services like medical care and health institutions and the education sector? I mean, we need some further clarity on that. Because I know in the past program, in 2015, there was some exception for some sectors.
That when these persons are going on retirement,
you have to replace.
You have the requirement to replace them as well. And that's very, very critical. There's another portion that talks about rationalizing goods and services spending in our budget, and also reducing transfers of statutory funds through a reduction of a cap on the share of revenue that they can receive. That should be about 0.4% of GDP. Now, even as you're looking at statutory funds, should be reformed and rationalized. The authorities, that is government, are in the process of hiring an external consultant to undertake what they call the comprehensive review of these statutory funds and how it should be implemented and how it should be advanced, or maybe when it comes to payment, how those things to be done. Now, this program is saying that the objective is to, one, evaluate spending and assess efficiency, the value for money, relevance as an alignment of embarking what they call to formulate spending needs. So basically ensure that you contain these expenditure and also ensure that when you have to spend, there is a need to spend.
Yeah, and another the big part of this also is the revenue bit. And one of part of the ones that I read in there that struck me is that they're also going to look at personal income tax. It's one of the areas that they're going to be touching. They're also going to be like revenue measures, enhancing this efficiency, and of course in the fuel is going to be looked at also, where they are now proposing government must implement automatic adjustments of fuel cost at the pumps to reflect exchange rate volatility and inflation.
And I think that we'll be looking at more of the levy, because from the current policy that we look at more as more of a total deregulation of the market. It has to do with the players themselves reviewing their prices.
Except
and
that
so,
in this case, they'll have a 2 weeks window where the pricing window comes along. This is talking about automatic as and when it happens. So if yesterday the $1 is to say 10 CDs and tomorrow it goes to $1 is 11 CDs, this is suggesting automatically let that reflect at the pumps.
And that's what Professor Peter Korte was saying, that maybe one of the benefits of this program would be the stability of the currency. So if the currency is stable, then we might even end up having a situation where there'll be reduction. Don't forget that another critical component in these tariffs review is inflation, and then the exchange rate effect and the cost of producing these fuel that you need, gas or crude. So if the exchange rate is stable, the price of crude would impact that would drop. Inflation is coming down. So if all these other variables actually are going down, then on the contrary, you're rather going to see a reduction in these measures that you spoke about.
I want to bring in now Seth Chumakwabo. He's the CEO of the Association of Ghana Industries, and one of the things that they've complained about was the increase in tariffs. Yesterday there was one in electricity, 18% plus. As we read in the document tonight, Mr. Chumakwabo, the document governing the program says that there must now be regular increases to reflect the reality on the ground, moving it closer to full cost recovery. Your reaction from the association?
Well, thank you very much, Evans. Yes, we appreciate that with the IMF intervention, these kind of conditionalities would come along, and we should be ready for it, except that when it comes to certain areas, we have to tread cautiously, because they all have ripple effects on development, on industry, on job creation, and so on and so forth. So when we say full cost recovery, we need to look at it critically. For a certain segment of the consumer group, I think that there's probably full cost recovery already. So when we say regular automatic adjustment, that is a principle we all agree to. But there are parameters that determine what the levels of adjustment should be. If the inflation rate, if the exchange rate deteriorates, naturally it calls for some adjustment. If the fuel prices, international level fuel prices go up, we also expect that there will be some adjustment to that effect. There's also the energy mix, hydro, between thermal. These are the factors that account for changes in the automatic adjustment system. But if these factors are working in a favorable manner, then the adjustment should not necessarily be an increase in tariff. It may rather lead to a decrease. And when it happens, we must decrease it. If you look at the recent tariff that has been adjusted, the one that was announced yesterday, I think that if you look at most of these parameters, there has been some improvement. The energy mix, as was mentioned, we've improved a bit from 26% of the hydro to about 29%. So that is an improvement. If you look at the exchange rate also, in recent times, we've seen some improvements in the CD exchange with the dollar. So if there's an improvement there, why should we have increments in tariffs? So in a situation where the key parameters are pointing to a positive arrangement, we should also affect it as such so that the companies can enjoy a bit of relief. So automatic adjustment system does not necessarily mean consistent increase. If you go with that mindset, then every quarter we are expecting to increase tariffs. And I think that would be very unfortunate. Already the industries are complaining and they are really seriously under stress because of high competition from imported products. And some in other countries, tariff levels are much lower than ours. And therefore we become uncompetitive. So I'm mindful of the fact that some adjustments is necessary because the operators in the energy industry, they are also businesses. They must survive in order to constantly give us the supplies we need. But at the same time, we must be mindful of the people we are also tasking so that they stay in business. If the businesses collapse, where will you get your revenue from? So I think it works in both ways, and we have to tread cautiously.
And that's an important point. I mean, are you looking forward to direct engagement with government as they move to begin implementation of what they've agreed with the IMF?
Definitely so. We are always engaging government when the opportunity exists, and we must even engage more around this time because we also have our expectations when it comes to the implementation of these measures. I think that the key point in all this is that we should not compromise and sacrifice industry because of the IMF intervention. It's been mentioned in this whole arrangement that government itself should be limiting rate increases, they should be limiting job and recruitment into the public sector and all that. When you are not recruiting into the public sector, where would they go? It's the private sector that should absorb these numbers. So if you have measures that weakens the private sector, weakens the industrial sector, weakens the agricultural sector, which is supposed to be the source of employment, then you are not going to create jobs at all. So we must be engaging to ensure that in implementing these measures, we actually support the productive sector. We should channel the resources to support the industry sector. If you weaken them with high tariffs, if you weaken them with all kinds of measures, now they have a big challenge with taxes. in all these sectors are siphoning money from the private sector, from the industrial sector. And most of them are downsizing now because they are in serious difficulty. So we need to manage it very carefully. Otherwise, we weaken the private sector that is supposed to take on the jobs that government cannot take. And we have to tread cautiously. So the engagement is key. And I believe that when we engage, we'll be able to identify areas that resources or a lot more emphasis should be placed on to support the productive sector so that we can keep the economy running. If we don't do so, then we run a risk of going around the circle and in the near future go back to IMF again. I think one lesson we learned from COVID and also from the recent Ukraine war, Russia-Ukraine war, was the fact that our productive base was weak. So when imports of certain essential products were not coming in, we all got scared. We got threatened that what are we going to do to survive? So if we are bringing IMF, this is the time to really look at the productive sector and ensure that we grow the industrial sector just for job creation and also to produce the essential goods for us on a competitive and sustainable basis.
Setu Makwaba, thank you very much. And he is the CEO of the Association of Ghana Industries. There, I want to take your own reaction to everything you've heard tonight on the back of the IMF Executive Board approval. This has to do with you. You've heard the implementation roadmap and some of the key interventions that will definitely affect you. Share with me 055-1111-997. In the last few minutes, the minority in Parliament, they've just issued a statement in which they are commending the tolerance of Ghanaian bondholders and citizens generally. They say in the statement that having secured this board approval, the Ghanaian people look forward to a board document on the true state of Ghana's economy, and that this report, they say, will outline the full details of the bargaining between the fund and the Akufo-Addo administration, a document we've just been detailing for you in the last few minutes. Now, the minorities say in the statement that they will, in the coming days, address Ghanaians on the contents of this report, and that this IMF deal portends for all of us going forward. But they have a few things to say already about what they believe have been the agreement between government and the IMF, and they say that the government, as part of the proposal to the IMF to secure the deal, has agreed to increase utility tariffs every 3 months from the last year, and they now reference the increases that we've seen lately, including the 18.36% increase in electricity tariffs yesterday. That's from the minority in the last few minutes. So listening to NewsNight is on Joy 99.7 FM. Now the Asantehene Tumfosetutu II is vowing tonight to deal firmly with chiefs found complicit in illegal mining in parts of the Ashanti region. Now he says he is very unhappy with galamsey that is ravaging lands in the Amansia area of the region. He will be visiting the area himself to demand answers from the local chiefs who sat aloof, he says, for the menace to destroy their lands there. And Nana Yaobwache has the rest of the story.
According to the Global Forest Watch, Ghana has lost a total of 1.4 mega hectares of tree cover from 2001 to 2021, with 160,000 hectares of forest lost within 2010 to 2015. The percentage of forest lost within the period exceeds the quantum of trees cultivated from 1963 to 2016. Illegal mining, illicit logging, the changing climate, and other environmental degradation factors are attributable to Ghana's forest loss. The Ashanti region, despite planting over 7 million trees, highest of all regions since the inception of the Green Ghana Day, is heavily riddled with illegal small-scale mining. Alarmed by the spate of illegal mining, the Asantehene reiterated his commitment to fighting the menace.
It is very sad that despite the several measures government has been putting in place to curb this menace, illegal logging and illegal mining continue to pose a threat to our forests. It means that government cannot do it alone. We must all get involved and support government to come to grips with these matters. My chiefs know that I've been speaking about this, and I'm not happy with chiefs in Amansia area where galamsey has taken over the land, and I say to them that if you sit there and you claim that you don't know what is happening, then you are not fit to be a chief over there. So these are matters that we are going to take it up again. And I don't care whose goals it is, because we have to enforce it. And I have to start with my chiefs first, and then government has to deal with the other ones. So we all have to take matters seriously to be able to bring this to a closure, because I cannot accept that. I'm going to take a drive around those areas, in the Amansia to Mansum Kwanta area and all those things to see. I've gotten reports about what is happening, and I'm going to do that. So, and if I finish with that, all the chiefs around that area may have to answer as to why that has happened.
Well, already experts are alarmed at the impact of illegal mining on public health and safety. The Environmental Protection Agency says it has found heavy metals in the gills of fishes tested from that river. But Lands Minister Abu Junapo says the government is on track and unwavering in the fight against illegal mining. Lab FM's Erastus Asari Donko is part of the 2023 dialogue by the University of Energy and Natural Resources in Sunyani and has filed this report.
This year's UNAIR Transformational Dialogue on Small-Scale Mining opened with a call for action from the Council Chairman, Professor Kwesi Nsia-Jabbar, and Vice-Chancellor of the University, Professor Elvis Asare-Bediako.
Artisanal and small-scale mining in Ghana is increasingly situated with the destruction of our forests, our water bodies, and our farmlands. The galamsey menace is so serious that the next general elections will be determined by the way and manner in which the various political parties will address the galamsey issue in their manifestos. So, Minister, if you can break the 8, then you can warm yourself from today.
The most pressing need in Ghana is for country-level stakeholders to strengthen their human and institutional capacity to implement, monitor, and manage difficulties linked with artisanal small-scale activity.
The Environmental Protection Agency, represented by its Ahafo Regional Director, Dr. Jackson Ediya Nyantachi, drew attention to the heavy metal contamination of water sources, narrowing in on some testing of samples from the Tano River.
EPA, we are also into research. I did a publication in Hundari, that was last year. I assessed the levels of heavy metals, mercury to be specific, in face samples that were taken from River Tano at the Dantano area there. I thought I was just doing something simple. But when I realized the levels of mercury in the face samples, I became so alarmed. I looked at the levels in muscle, the fish muscles, the head, the gills, the eye, and the bones. The highest concentration was in the gills. The bones were also there. So since then, I have stopped eating the head of the fish as well as the bones. I only eat the muscles, and that is it.
Security analyst Adib Sani drew attention to the proliferation of illegal weapons in galamsey sites.
Galamsey sites are awash with illegal weapons. At least, there's a one-pump action gun at a galamsey site. In the first few weeks after Operation Vanguard started, 30 guns, including rifles with thermal scopes, were seized from miners in eastern, western, and Ashanti regions. Only 2 of the 30 confiscated guns were registered. If not well regulated, mining materials such as TNT could fall into terrorist hands, because Ghana is emerging to be a major logistics hub for terrorists.
Bono Regional Minister Justina Owusu-Banahene said politicians cannot be solely blamed for the negative impact of mining.
People begin to point fingers at certain people. And so today, galamsey is in Ghana. And people are pointing fingers at the politician. But you, as a landlady, as a landlord, as where you come from, people who are mining illegally stay in our houses. They live with us, and we know what they do. Some of them are close to us. And even for all you know, there may be somebody here in this room who is involved. But we end up pointing the finger at the politician, forgetting that the other 4 also points at you and me.
But Lands Minister Samuel Abujanapo hinted of increasing punishment regimes for recalcitrant illegal miners.
For those who have vowed to ignore all these measures and continue with the illegalities, we have strengthened the law enforcement regime by increasing the punishment for persons convicted for engaging in illegal mining, while Operation Hot 2 continue to support our enforcement measures and also continue to deploy the decommissioning of equipment used for illegal mining.
Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaredonko, Sunyane, Bono Region.
And let me hear from you on this important story of galamsey and its impact on health. 055-1111-997. And there's been a heavy downpour today, and some parts of the capital got flooded, and many still may be battling the consequences of that. I want to take you to the Tema Flower Highway, where motorists on that stretch are expressing concern about the frequent flooding of the road whenever there's a heavy downpour. Now, according to the commuters, the situation exposes them to danger and must be checked immediately by government to avert any possible casualties. They raised these concerns after today's downpour left several stranded, as movement of motorists was heavily impeded this morning at the Bumbaria portion of the main Temaflau road due to flood waters that blocked the road. Now, some affected motorists who spent several hours in that traffic have been speaking to us.
Sometimes the cars can never move very well, and people are helping the car motors so that everything will go side and side. Almost it started around 8 that way when it started raining. So we are telling the government that they should come and solve this problem before this gets west.
Due to the rain, we cannot cross the bridge, so we need to reverse. So we return to use this route, and still there is a traffic here. And this traffic too, it is caused by the same rain at Belapa. So the rain there has caused the flood, and the flood is leading us this way.
It's very bad. The traffic is very bad. You can't go. You have to stop about 30 minutes before you move. Yeah. So I managed more than 1 hour before I got here. And here to now, I can't do anything. I have to go back.
I work at Unilever, but then I'm supposed to be at work around 8 o'clock. But then because of this, I'm still stuck here and I'm not able to go. So it needs to be done for us. So it's just a plea because this is a main route we use to wherever we go. People from 25, people from Bediako, they all switch over here to go to their various work.
Well, are you still in traffic today after the heavy downpour? Please get in touch and let's hear what you have been experiencing all day, if this is still causing traffic in some parts. Let's hear from you. A few of your messages. Lincoln Akwitima, I thought the loan from the IMF will reduce suffering I'm going through with my family. He's asking, as we now know, you can expect a bit more, bedding going forward. This one says the Teshinungwa drivers have refused to reduce their fares by 10%. That was approved. Well, that's a story that is still raging with a bit more controversy. And of course, the politics is still a major subject, and many people are still concerned about the IMF program and what it means for them going forward. Nana on the Spinters Road says, what does the finance minister mean by government programs if the IMF loan is going to support their so-called free education? I hope not, then we will soon be back to the IMF. Honestly, we all can suffer for a politician's manifesto program. Nana sent us that with his thoughts. After business. Sanitation Minister directs all MMDCEs to capture and sell stray animals to support government projects.
When you let your cows stray, they should seize the cows, arrest the cows, sell the cows, and use the money to help with projects in the assemblies.
And then later we tell you why tattoos are becoming a very popular trend in Ghana.
Right now I have over 18 tattoos. Different parts of my body, but most of them are on my hand.
And then a bit more politics within the NDC. Who is going to be their candidate in the Asin North by-election? It looks like there's a lot of support for James Echikwesi, despite that Supreme Court verdict that effectively deposed him as Member of Parliament. We have that for you all after business. Hello, George.
Hi, Evans. And coming up in business, Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, confirms the first tranche of IMF cash set to hit central bank's account tomorrow, but insists Ghanaians should focus on the structural reforms that the IMF program brings. And managers of Tasty Treats and 7 others in grip of Ghana Revenue Authority over VAT infractions. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Allianz Life and Ghana Pay. You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, first tranche of IMF cash disbursement should hit Bank of Ghana's account tomorrow. This will represent about $604 million that should come in by the end of tomorrow. That is, Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, disclosed this at a joint press conference between the IMF, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, as well as the central bank itself. But the Governor of the Bank of Ghana has maintained that we shouldn't be fixated about the money coming in, but rather the structural reforms that the program will present to the economy.
Approval is just the beginning of the real work of building Ghana better. And thirdly, the Executive Board's approval of the support program yesterday, especially if you look at the time frame within which Ghana secured this approval, is an indication of the strong government's political will and commitment to the reform agenda, the painful sacrifice of Ghanaians, especially through some of the measures such as the domestic debt exchange, which has also helped us reach these conclusions very quickly. So we have reached a point where our key stakeholders should come through very quickly with their support to give meaning to the catalytic role of the fund and help build Ghana better. We see here a clear demonstration of burden sharing, including macro and structural reforms and the domestic debt restructuring. We're looking forward to and continuing to count on an expedited process.
Now, speaking at the same press conference, Mission Chief Stefan Rode was optimistic that Ghana will be able to meet the necessary program benchmark at the next review.
Today, I am extremely positive. What I see is a very strong commitment from the authorities, and I have no reason to believe that the program will not be fully implemented going forward. And we are here to and standing by the authorities to help them do so. And then finally, I believe the program approval is also an extremely good news with respect to your third question, which is about World Bank and other partners' support. I think it sends a very strong signal to the international community and other international organizations that the program is in place, that the authorities are committed, and it can only help catalyze additional financing for Ghana.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta on his part maintained that Ghana's record approval should not be seen as sheer luck or the country was favored by the IMF.
About how countries such as Zambia, Chad, and Ethiopia have not been able to go through bringing much distress to the economies, and the way in which Ghana has been able to work assiduously with the fund and the partners to have this landmark decision yesterday really should be considered an achievement instead of saying that it has been rushed. The program, as Stefan said, is rich and solid, and I really would encourage you to read the documents for you to know that. I think when we are able to do good work, we should be courageous enough to enjoy and savor the achievement and not turn it into a negative. And with regards to the benchmarks are clear. It is up to us in the same vein in which we were able to achieve the agreement yesterday and approval yesterday, and that we also work hard to make sure that the benchmarks are met as we go forward.
And that was Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta speaking at that joint news conference between the IMF and the Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Ernest Addison and the Finance Minister himself, Ken Ofori-Atta. Let's hear the thoughts of an economist, Dr. Edua Sarkodie, on the assurances from the IMF and the impact of this program on the economy.
There are benefits of the program, and I'm sure even beyond the IMF, we can have more benefits with regards to the World Bank support and also private sector participation. We need the inflow of funds to do business, to stabilize our city. What it's telling us is that there's work to be done. And I think all panelists agree that this is just the beginning of the serious work to be done with regards to recovering from these economic challenges. It is the reason the IMF has not given us the entire 3 billion, because they are giving it in tranches to make sure that we actually work hard to get the remaining 80% of the tranches.
That is Dr. Edu Sarkodie. He is an economist. Now, managers of Status Trees and Paladin Furniture and other firms were picked up by the enforcement team of the Ghana Revenue Authority for failing to issue VAT invoice and selective application of the tax laws. All the managers were handed over to the Criminal Investigation Department of the Ghana Police Service for questioning. Let's hear from the head of the enforcement unit at the Ghana Revenue Authority, Joseph Annan.
But for us, we always do our preventive assessments and then we recommend you for full audit. What we did in the past, many of them are being audited, and this is not going to be different. So we have been to places like Tasty Treat Restaurant at Legon, Obsession at East Legon, Luxury Wear, East Legon, Eco Furniture, East Legon, Paladin Dolls, East Legon, AB Tissues and more, Adenta, and then TF Eatery, Adenta, where we find ourselves currently.
And that is the head of enforcement unit at the Ghana Revenue Authority, Joseph Annan, speaking after an exercise today to actually ensure that some firms that were not actually issuing the VAT invoice and also enforcing some tax laws. And Evans, on PM Express Business Edition tonight, it is still about the IMF program approval, and we'll be engaging the Minister of State at the Finance Ministry on what is next for government when it comes to fiscal discipline, investor confidence, and also those critical measures that they have to implement to ensure that they will get other disbursement coming in from the IMF and other donor partners.
I mean, what is clear is that there are many issues still to be clarified, and it's good to sit down with the Minister of State to get that clarity. And many people are asking questions about what it will mean for them going forward. Government can offer that clarity going forward. And now that we have this bulky document that we're all going to pop through and still making sense.
Very bulky, even.
Very bulky. We're still finding things. Each time you read, you find interesting things. And now to the time that this program is end, we'll be reading a lot more.
A lot more things. And even during the reviews, Evans. And for me, what excites me about the program is that full disclosure, and to expect more things coming out. That letter of intent that was signed by the Finance Minister and the Governor of the Bank of Ghana. And everything under this program will be published for us to see.
George, thank you very much.
So 9 p.m. PM Express Business Edition on Joy News and all our social media platforms.
Well, let's find our way into the election headquarters now. This is your election headquarters. The National Democratic Congress has expressed its unwavering determination to reclaim the Asin North seat in the forthcoming by-election following the Supreme Court's verdict that nullified James Joshua Kwesing's eligibility in the 2020 polls. He held on to that seat until fairly recently. Now he's been deposed. In a statement, the NDC affirmed its full support for Mr. Kwesing, assuring him of the party's backing and the solidarity of the minority caucus in Parliament. With an eye on an even more resounding victory, the NDC is eager to mobilize its resources and rally behind the candidate. Deputy National General Secretary Mustafa Gbande emphasized their preparedness for this election.
The main process is that we are waiting for the Supreme Court's judgment to give us a fair appreciation and the basis of that judgment. Number two, we also want to know government schedule as far as that election is concerned. As indicated in the letter signed by my boss, we are prepared for the by-election. We are ready for the by-election, and as soon as possible, we believe that because of the urgency of what is happening in Parliament, government should move so that we can go and have that election. We, as a party, we are more than prepared for the by-election as a step 2. But step 1 would be for us to examine the judgment of the court and to advise ourselves as a party, and then from there we'll take it up.
Well, in the back of that particular case, the NDC is making or has now effected some internal reforms, one of which is that aspirants will have to produce their certificate of renunciation if indeed they hold dual citizenship before they will be allowed to run in party elections. Listen to the director of legal for the party, Abraham Amaliba.
You don't need to wait for a renunciation certificate. So I think yes, we need the EC to be more vigilant and know some of these laws that are coming from other countries about citizenship. Then also, on our part, we have, in the last election that just passed, the primaries, we have indicated that those who renounce the citizenship before the nominations, and that they lose the right to represent the party if they don't do that. And so we will not present them to the EC if they fail to renounce their citizenship. So we've done those things, and I think that going forward, we may not have some of these things happen.
Well, from the NPP, the governing New Patriotic Party, the chairman of the party's Constitution and Legal Committee, Frank Davis, warns the Electoral Commission to do proper due diligence before allowing anyone to run in next year's general elections.
Maybe my advice to the EC will be that if any prospective parliamentary candidate comes to say that I have renounced my citizenship, EC should ask for the certificate of renunciation first, okay? Because MPP, we went through the same process. I was the chairman of the verification committee. All the prospective parliamentary candidates who came before us, I demanded proof of the certificate of renunciation. If you don't have it, I will not pass.
That is, was that based on a prior suspicion?
Of course. I mean, the same thing happened to our own Adamu Sakandi. Okay. So the questionnaire we had was that if you have renounced your citizenship, provide us with the certificate.
So you see that.
So from the threshold, we had confirmed and verified whatever documents our people brought. So I think going forward, the EC should not take any parliamentary candidate's word for granted. If you say you have renounced your citizenship, let us see the certificate.
Now to the controversy in K2 North following the parliamentary primaries over the weekend. The leadership of the party has been justifying the decision by its executive committee to use unstamped ballots to declare Edem Agbana, the former deputy national youth organizer of the party, as a legitimate winner of the K2 North parliamentary primary. Now, his main contender, John Adanu, in a press conference earlier today, questioned the basis of this decision and the validity of the unstamped ballots.
The key point in this determination is that the serial numbers on the ballots in question are from the booklet used in the constituency election. And since there is no overvoting, these ballots cannot be said to be foreign materials. This means, as far as our internal elections are concerned, stamping of ballot papers are irrelevant, given no overvoting and the correspondence of serial numbers to the booklet. If these ballots were removed during sorting, will we be here? Or the fact that they were taken out after recount and not even after EC declaration make them valid? Can our members accept this if it occurs to us in the national elections? This really worries me. This concern notwithstanding, I remain positive about the course of the party for victory 2024. My prayer is that this does not come to haunt us in the future. And I pray that one day this precedent will be corrected, no matter how long it takes.
What's the party's view on this? Let's bring in the Deputy General Secretary, Mustafa Gbane. Mustafa, he has a point, does he not?
Well, I believe that each and everyone has a point. And I must say that the gentleman demonstrated maturity, candor, immediately when he appeared before the National Executive Committee. What is more relieving is that after his expression of his dissatisfaction, which is entitled to, he went ahead to say that for the interest of the party, he is willing to support the cause of the party for 2024. For me, that is a wonderful submission, and we congratulate him for this decision. Going forward, like we are all learning, and the party continues to improve on this system. All of these issues will be looked at in subsequent elections to ensure that I'm sure that the Electoral Commissioner has also taken a key from this, that some errors have effect, and that as far as the officers will be performing some obligations for the party, those exercises must be done with a bit of caution and diligence, so that we don't run into some of these questions from aspirants. And so I think that we're good to go.
Musa Fagbande, thank you very much. Let's do sports now. I'm about here with the latest.
Evans, well, it's Kumasi Asantekoto's winger, Nicolas Mensah, and he's been handed a one-year ban from all football-related activities by the Disciplinary Committee of the Ghana Football Association. Now, the decision comes in response to a complaint filed by Aduana Stars after Mensah featured against them in a Ghana Premier League clash. My colleague Daniel Crantain has the rest of the story over there on.
The ban was handed to the young winger in response to a complaint filed by Aduana Stars after the two teams met in a Ghana Premier League fixture earlier this season. Aduana Stars alleged that Mensah, who started the game, was not eligible to play for Asante Kotoko, as the player, who now goes by Joshua Kwame Rue, had changed his name without proper authorization. Prior to his name change, the player was known as Louis Mensah. The current league leaders, Aduana Stars, wanted Asante Kotoko punished as a result. However, the disciplinary committee of the GFA rejected that request, stating that the responsibility for the offence lay with Mensah's former club, Demusia del Sanco FC. Kotoko, in response to the news of the player's ban, have released a statement in which the club says it will review the verdict before considering its next steps. Mensah joined Kotoko from Del Sanco FC at the start of the season on a 3-year contract. Before the ban, he had scored 3 goals in 8 appearances.
Daniel Grant there with that report. So, Evans, is Manchester City going to be able to win the treble? Starts on Sunday against Chelsea. They win it, that game, and of course they win in the Premier League. Then they have a game against Manchester United, the FA Cup final, after which they play Inter Milan in that Champions League final. Against Chelsea, admittedly, they're going to win it. I don't see how Chelsea is going to beat them. But it's against Manchester United.
I mean, you're discounting Inter.
Well,
I tell you, this is football.
Yeah.
A team can be fantastic one game and absolutely shambolic the next. Especially also because this is a one-off. It's a final.
Yeah.
So you don't have 2 legs.
Yeah.
If Real Madrid and City had played that one leg, it would have been 1-1, right? So anything is possible.
Yeah.
You remember Jose Mourinho against Pep Guardiola's Barca?
Yeah.
Which team was he coaching then? It was
Inter Milan.
You know what he did in that game? He won that game and nobody gave him a dog's chance. And that is why I'm saying wait and see.
Okay, we'll wait to see if Manchester City can do the double or not. Thanks,
anyway, thank you very much, Ms. Bao. Now, Ghanaian Member of Parliament for Ho West, who doubles as member of the Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament, is raising serious questions about the outcome of Nigeria's presidential elections, as lawmakers from across the West Africa really deliberate on the precarious democratic situation in Nigeria. 2 opposition parties in that country, the Labour Party and the People's Democratic Party, PDP, are currently in court challenging the process even before that situation is dealt with. The ECOWAS Parliament, which is currently meeting in Abuja, says it will be moving to review the situation in Nigeria at a critical meeting tomorrow. Now, we've been hearing from the Ho West Member of Parliament, Kwesi Bedra, who doubles as a member of the Human Rights Committee of the ECOWAS Parliament, is telling Joy News that their findings suggest that only 38% of the voters, of the voter population in Nigeria, actually participated in February's election. He said that development is dangerous for the stability of Nigeria and for the entire West African sub-region.
Well, I'm a member of the Human Rights and Legal Committee that has a joint committee meeting tomorrow with the political committee tomorrow. One of the issues that we'll be looking at will be to deliberate on, to meet with the commissioner in charge of political affairs from the ECOWAS Commission. And one of the things we'll be deliberating on has to do with the situation in Sierra Leone as well as Liberia. You know, Sierra Leone and Liberia will be having their elections soon, as well as Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau will be having their deputy, that's a deputies or parliamentary election also in August. And so we have issues to deal with.
And my colleague Blazer Soga is in Nigeria. You want to catch him on Joy Prime for the very latest on what is happening in Nigeria. And I want to take you to a subject that we rarely talk about. I'm talking about tattoos. Have you wondered why many Ghanaians are now falling in love with it? Well, my colleague Jacqueline Asoma Yeboah has more in this report.
And piercing have become increasingly popular among young people in Ghana, with many seeing it as a form of self-expression and a way to showcase their personality.
Right now, I have over 18 tattoos, different parts of my body, but most of them are on my hand.
Meet Senna. She has over 18 tattoos, each of which holds special significance for her.
So each tattoo has a personal meaning. To me personally, all my tattoos have meanings, but I can explain a couple of them for you if you want. This is actually my first tattoo. It's kind of wiped off. It means God is greater than the highs and the lows. I've got this one, with God all things are possible. That's my mom's favorite Bible verse. And I've got this for my favorite TV show.
The hatred Senna encounters on a daily basis is normal to her. Despite how fashionable some body modifications may be, society has its own perceptions about them, and those who use them are frequently stigmatized.
I just take it like it is. People are actually gonna love it and people are not. I can't tell you to like my tattoos because like I like them, you get me? So it depends on whoever it is. If you like them, fine. If you don't, it's good.
Some traditional beliefs and practices discourage the use of tattoos, and some religious groups see them as a form of defilement of the body. As a result, some people still hesitate to get tattoos for the fear of being judged or ostracized. As the trend continues to grow, it will be interesting to see how it evolves and becomes integrated into Ghanaian culture. Jacqueline Asoma Yeboah's report for Joy News.
Well, I need to get a tattoo pretty soon. Well, the lack of a 24-hour service at many shops hinders many would-be customers from accessing products, especially at night. What if there can be a vending machine where items can be purchased using mobile money? Fortunately, 3 computer engineering students of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology has responded to this exact call. On Thursday, Lab FM's Kwesi Deborah speaks with the students behind the innovation, Bernard Addo, Enoch Ahin, and Peter Doglo.
The vending machine is equipped with a camera to monitor activities in the surrounding, a 7-inch touchscreen to control the machine, a mobile app, and spring coils for dispensing their items.
When we were taking our examination this semester, a lot of sellers were outside the library from 10 p.m. up to morning 5 a.m. just because students would come out at dawn to come and buy water or to come and buy chips. We found out that human efforts can be put to better use than just sitting around and waiting for someone to come and buy their stuff. And that's why we decided to build a vending machine.
So since it's a remote control device, it doesn't need constant supervision.
So whenever anyone buys anything, it's going to appear on this dashboard, total sales. You always get live updates of whatever someone comes to buy. And you can also know the percentage of goods that are in your vending machine, so that you don't always have to come and check, oh, are there things in my vending machine or not? You'd see them remotely within seconds on this application.
Reporting for Joy News, Kwesi Deborah.
And indeed, this is a solution worth investing in. And just before we leave, I don't know about you, but I get really frustrated when stray animals cross my path, especially when I'm driving on a busy road. You see that every day. They pose a significant risk. They can cause accidents, but also sometimes they just litter, leave filth on the road. And you wonder who exactly is taking care of these animals. Well, the Sanitation and Water Resources Minister Cecilia Benadapa has a solution. He is directing metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives across the country to arrest, seize, and sell these stray animals and use the proceeds to develop their communities.
Sanitation courts, and I will encourage all the assemblies to take advantage of it and apply the bylaws and prosecute. We support them 110%. When you let your cows stray, they should seize the cows, arrest the cows, maybe if I should use that word, sell the cows and use the money to help with projects in the assemblies.
Well, you need to ask the question. Next time you see a stray animal, can you also, effect a citizen's arrest of that stray animal and send it to your local assembly? It's an open question. Chew over that. My name is Evans Mensah. Enjoy the rest of your evening.